Hello. Forgot to turn off my mute there. Always good when you're starting a Facebook Live that way. Ken Course here, talking about another simple campaign organizer and ways for you to find your momentum. If you haven't heard of me before, I am a marketing and sales strategy expert. I help you generate more leads for your business. I help you take your marketing where you want to go. And today I'm talking a bit more about this tool. And in my last Facebook Live video, if you missed that one, there's another solid half an hour of content of us going through the process of reviewing what's called the simple campaign organizer and audit. So during these sessions, I really encourage you to ask questions, give feedback. I actually share these on all of my Facebook pages, including my personal. So I'm sharing that right now, actually. That's why I was running a little bit behind when I was starting there. Today, it's you. So let's share it, because today I'm going to be reviewing another simple campaign organizer that I received, this time from a client who was at the Magnetic Speaker event, I believe, that's named Shelley Campbell-Harley. And so, again, this tool is a tool that we are about to launch. We're going to be talking about it a lot more on Explore Momentum and in our business going forward. But really, just in short, what this is, and I'm going to take away the lower third for a second, what this is a very simple way to put your marketing plan together. It is done in plain language. It isn't designed to be confusing. A lot of the marketing training and such that I go through, as you can see from all the certificates on my wall and all the marketing training that I spend every day reviewing, tends to really get into jargon. It tends to get into this idea that we're going to speak about it in marketing language. And a lot of time, for those of you who went into business, you didn't go into business necessarily to become great marketers. Now you have to be. You have to be a great marketer and a great salesperson to keep your business going. But in this case, I want to be really certain that you have a tool that's allowing you to organize all these things, put them together in a way that makes sense. And that's what the Simple Campaign Organizer is designed to do. And as I mentioned, next week we're going to be launching this project to the world, so you'll all be able to download it, complete it. And for the first few, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about how you can get your session done just like this, just like I'm doing for Shelley today. So first of all, section 1 that we've got here that I'm going to be going through, what am I doing? So really, this is asking you about yourself. It's saying, all right, what do you want to happen in this marketing campaign overall? It's far, far more likely that you're going to be successful when you step forward with a goal, and then the strategy that comes along with the rest of this organizer is really helping you execute it. So when I ask the question, what do I want to happen in this campaign, Shelley jumps right in and she says, I want to gain 100 new customers in the coming year, and I want to make 100K in the next year. So if we're getting 100 customers at 100K, I just want to do my math right there. That means we need to make about $1,000 a customer. So as we go through this process, my hope is in your business model that we have here, that we'll be able to understand exactly how we're going to generate that $1,000 per customer. Plus, the other thing that's really important is you're using the words customers and not leads. So the question also has to become, how many leads do you need to generate in order to create those 100 customers? And since I don't know your sales statistics or the systems that sit behind you and any of that stuff, there may be some answers as we get later into this. But the truth is that 100 customers might mean 1,000 leads at a 10% conversion ratio. It might mean 500 leads. It might mean whatever it means. It's really saying, all right, we've got to look at some data. We've got to look at either your historical data, and if you don't have that, we want to make an estimate. And we want to make an estimate that's on the conservative side. We want to really say, all right, for us to get this 100 customers, that means I need to get 1,500 email addresses, phone numbers, all of those things. Now again, you might do a lot better than that. Your follow-up system might be much better than this, Shelley. But the truth is, for a lot of you, we don't even know what that formula looks like for you. You just know you want a certain dollar figure, but you don't necessarily know how many leads and how many sales you need to generate. So in Shelley's case, she needs to find 100 customers that are worth $1,000 to her a piece, which is going to generate her that 100K number. So then the next question on the organizer is, how will I make this happen? So what she says here is, I need to begin a direct mail campaign, interesting, so offline marketing, and start building my speaking career. My favorite form of marketing overall, and by far the most lucrative for those of you who want to do marketing and who want to do sales. Speaking events and events in general are really the best way for you to get warm audiences in front of you. So you want to make sure that you are out speaking whenever you can. Even if you're using Facebook Live like we're using here, and I'll talk about this in a future lesson. I'm actually developing a course that's going to talk a bit about Facebook Live for those of you you who are wondering how we do what we do with the fancy lower thirds and all that stuff, I want to talk about that a little bit. But speaking career, I need to do at least one major gig per month. So again, if we're looking for 100 customers that are worth $1,000, this is also going to allow us to be pretty choosy about what type of speaking gigs we're going to take, because we've got to make sure, again, that that's fulfilling our goal. So how many people are at these speaking gigs? Are they 10, 25, 100, 500? Are you able to sell at them, or are you only collecting leads that you can follow up on? So again, your follow-up process has to be really solid based on where we are here. So let's talk a little bit more about that as we go through the rest of your organizer. But you want to really build this over time to be able to say, all right, you want to tactically choose those events and tactically choose the way that you're thinking about how you approach these organizers. So then from here, I asked my favorite marketing question, who cares? So who cares that you're doing this? Who cares that you're going into business? Who cares that you want to make this revenue amount? Now again, you want your customers to care. If you can get your business in a position where your customers care about your goals as much as you do, or they care about participating in a brand or a community as much as you do, that is really critical. Now for a lot of you, that might just mean who's keeping you accountable? Who's your coach? Who's your mentor? Who's the person that's really helping you in here? Who cares that this solution, that this change, that all those things are going to happen at this point? So really, I want to make sure that everybody has a solid answer to who cares that you're doing this, or why do you care? If you don't care, your customers will care even less. So you say, who cares? The teachers that have kids in their class with behavior issues, the parents who have kids that have tuned out of the family relationships. Both of those are really big problems. So I actually think you have a great problem here that you're trying to tackle. What's really important about this question, and as we go through the rest of this organizer, what I'm hoping to see is that the language they use? Do the parents refer to them as behavioral issues, or do the parents refer to them as out-of-control kids, or kids that are obnoxious, or kids that are brats? Again, I want to get really deep inside the customer, and I want to say, all right, at this point, what is the language that they use, and is that the language that teachers use? Behavioral issues does really sound like like the language that a teacher would use. They have a kid in their class that has behavior issues. In this case, is that the language that the parents use? So do we need to split the message a little bit so that we're attracting people a bit more effectively? We need to make sure that the message is right and that they really do care. Because if I'm approaching with language that doesn't really resonate with a parent, and I would even ask you this question is, if you're a parent out there that's listening to this, and you can leave comments on my personal or wherever you're seeing this Facebook Live video, would you use the word, my kid has behavioral issues, or would you use the words, my kid is a brat, or my kid is obnoxious, or my kid's not listening? What is the language that really makes sense based on this? So that takes us into the second step, and you can tell by the way I'm asking these questions, who is my customer? And so right here, what you've got, again, and this is pretty generic in what you have in the top. I have two boxes here for men and women, male or female. So you put teachers and parents in both of those. But then the next few questions help us refine this a little bit. And I'm actually going to do some work today in Insights to show you guys a little bit about how I find this customer and what numbers look like, and is this a good audience that we even have right here. So teachers and parents, you said they could live in the city, they could live in the suburbs, but they don't live in the country. That's very interesting. How old is my customer? So you have two boxes checked, and I have those broken down into some larger demographics here. I have 25 to 34 or 35 to 44 that you have in here. So again, you're looking for people, young to middle-aged parents that we're looking at, and teachers who are involved in the industry. So what does the customer care about the most in their life? Now again, you have two customers you're talking about here. You're talking about teachers and parents. For the most part, I can say this before we go too deep into it, that it looks like most of what you have right here is talking about the teachers. You have a little bit of a thought for the parents, but really this organizer is really targeting the teachers. So you say that the teachers want to have a peaceful classroom in which students are respectful and learning. Okay, that makes total sense. Again, I would question the language here. Now, how do I look at the language? First of all, I'd ask as many teachers as I talk to. I would try to sell this offline to as many teachers as I could so that I'm hearing their language. When I ask them questions and I'm wanting a response, I want to know the specific language that they use. Is peaceful the word? And I actually wrote that in my notes here. Is peaceful the word that they would use? Is behavioral the way they would use? We want to get really specific about the language parts here, because is that the word? The more attractive we can get the language, and the more that the person relates to the language, the better off it's going to be. Then from here, having a great relationship between family members. Again, is that enough of a pain point, or is that enough of a priority? are those the words that parents would use when they're talking about the kids in their household? Or is it that they just want their kids to be calm, or they want everyone to get along? That might be great relationships. But again, really specific about the language. Let's take that language to the next level, because what does my customer care about the most? They have their words for it, and it's really important to know what those words are. What gets your customer excited? That's the next one in here. Great strategies for creating a peaceful, and I underline that word again, is peaceful the right word, and positive culture in their classroom, same as above. So again, let's really refine that language and make sure that that's really what we want to look at. Is peaceful the word? Or do we have to focus again more on the pain point of what we're talking about here? I don't know. We got to be really consistent and really careful about how we think about that, because the language is really specific, and that's what's going to attract the client here. What does my customer absolutely hate? So you put disruptive kids and disrespectful kids. And then I wrote on here with my Sharpie, more specific. So again, how does the kids get disruptive? What specifically are the kids doing? Are they standing up in class? Are they throwing things around? Like, how do we get really specific? Because again, we want to create an experience in anything that we do for our client or for our user. So if we're trying to create something that really gets the teacher going, oh my God, I can't stand this. I don't even want to think of another day. Like, is the kid talking back in class? Are they being obnoxious? What are the specific things that kid is doing in the classroom? Are they throwing stuff around? Are they cheating on tests? Like, how do we get more specific about that? Because I don't think disruptive is enough of a message. It's not enough of a motivator, in my opinion. And again, this is just my intuition, marketing experience. I don't think that it's a bad word. I'm just not super convinced without some research and some conversation that disruptive is a powerful enough word for both the kids and the families. Let's get specific about the scenarios. And the more that you can talk to people, whether it's your case studies or your testimonials or anything that you've got in there that says what are the specific scenarios that are happening. Like, you come home from school and you tell little Johnny to do his homework, and little Johnny says, no, I'm never doing my homework again, and now he doesn't want to eat dinner, and now he's sitting up in his room, and now he's complaining and whining and crying, and now he's fighting with his siblings. So even when I describe that scenario in this, there's way more emotion behind that than disrespectful kids. So I want to get really specific in what does your customer absolutely hate. And let's think of some scenarios that are really specific to attract those teachers and attract those customers. Like, what specifically is happening? Then right here, what does your customer do in your spare time? So you say the teachers don't have much spare time, and then I wrote in arrows again in Sharpie here. You have to give a little bit more, and I'll show you why in a second. I'm actually going to show the reason why today on this video, why it matters to be really specific about their interests, because you have tools where you can look up and find where these people are. Then try to spend quality time with family, enjoy the me time that parents have. Again, let's get specific. What type of magazines do they read? What type of websites do they visit? What television shows do they watch? Like, how do we get really specific about finding the person that's experiencing this very specific problem? And again, I'll show you that in a second with Facebook Insights. We're just going to dig into that for a minute right here and say, why is this an issue and why do we need it to be so specific? So how does your customer feel after you solve the problem for them? They feel grateful. They feel relieved at the disappearance of stress and bad attitudes. Yeah, I think that's a good motivator. They regain their self-confidence as parents. I think that's really important. I actually underlined it. So you want parents to feel more confident. I think that's really good because, again, the reason I asked this question, how does my customer feel, is I want to be able to speak from the after state. So once I've solved this problem, once I've gotten rid of the behavioral issues, me as the expert, I'm speaking from the state where I know what I'm talking about, and I know what's possible for you as the customer. So in this case, I want you to use that language. If confidence is the issue, like if this behavioral issue is so grating on the parents and the teachers and all that it's shaking their confidence, that it's shaking their desire to stay in the career, and we know this happens. We know, come on, all of y'all have seen Dangerous Minds. Well, that's the positive side. Are you Shelley Campbell, The Dangerous Minds? Are you Michelle Pfeiffer from Dangerous Minds? That's a dated reference. I'm not going to lie. That's a pretty dated reference. But if you're a Coolio fan, you're down with it. So how does your customer feel? Get as specific as you can about that. And so what I'm going to do for a second, before we go into the other 2 pages of the campaign organizer, is I'm going to jump us over to what's called Facebook Insights. So I'm going to show that on the screen here for those of you watching. And again, if you have questions, if you want to know something specific or see something specific, today I'm just going to run over it at a very high level to really show, all right, how do I now take this information that I have on this campaign organizer and say, is this a good target? So here's what we're going to do. Let me jump over to my screen capture over here. Let me get rid of this guy. All right, so here we are on my screen. This is the Explore Momentum page. And up here at the left, for those of you who haven't done a lot of this, there's this little menu where next to pages. And then there's this little menu item that's called Audience Insights. So I'm going to open that guy right here. And it's going to ask you, what audience do you want to use to start? This is an important question because if you have an existing list or you have a custom audience you've already built, you can work in this. But since we don't have that right now and we're using our simple campaign organizer to get there, we're just going to use everyone on Facebook. So then it's going to walk us through a little wizard, and it's just saying, here's an audience of active Facebook users in the US. It's 150 to 200 million people because we don't have anything really in here right now. So we're going to target just the United States for now. Under age and gender, you said 25 to 44. So let's look at both of these and see how far down it gets refined. So that takes us down to 80 million to 90 million active people. And again, it's pretty evenly divided, 51% men and 49% women. And so then let's look at some interests. And actually, I think we can look at occupations under here in advanced. Yeah, let's do that instead. So let's do work under advanced, and let's do teacher. So job title, teacher, professor, educator. Let's see, it's not pulling any of those up. So let's keep playing with different titles. Oh, there we go. School. No. Oh, there we go. So let's go computer and mathematics. Let's go science. So this is likely giving us drilling into teachers. Let's give reading. No. Education and library. There we go. Education was the word I was looking for. My brain wasn't working. So let's just do education and library. I'll leave the science teachers in there too. So this has drilled our audience down now to an audience of 4.5 to 5 million people, which is actually a more specific audience. And again, it's 61% women and 39% men. So this is giving us clues right here to say, all right, how viable is this audience? And this gives us all sorts of other stuff that's in here. And again, this is just me doing it in 5 minutes. I'd probably do a little bit more if I were doing this for a client. But 25 to 44, so I could determine right here is the way that I'm going to talk to the female teachers different than the male teachers. So let's just select women and see what happens to that audience. That still takes us down to about 2.5 to 3 million active people. So again, we already know that's the bulk of this audience. We already know that it's interesting to see the split, that 59% of them are 25 to 34, whereas 41% of them are 35 to 44, so more in the younger age. So we've got to speak to their interests and their likes and the way that they are. But again, when I ask those questions about getting really specific about their interests and their targeting and all that stuff, is because then I can start to target more effectively. So I'll leave this in here, but I can start to look at things like pages that they're connected to, people that they're connected to, what are the types of things that they like, where do they live at this point, are they married or not, what is their political leanings, and really interest-wise in here, like let's just look up Wall Street Journal or something here. So I'll just type this in, which this has nothing to do with education. In fact, you can tell that took me from like 4 million down to 100K to 150K. But we would want to be putting in here the specific associations, the specific things that are really specific to this audience because I want to speak to specific people as best as I can. So let's just go with this Wall Street Journal thing. So I want to target people that read the Wall Street Journal. And then let's look at some things about them. So Facebook breaks down their lifestyle. So this is really their way of talking about income without talking about income. That's pretty interesting in here. So you can look at the little information. So this is affluent and well-educated working couples. This is childless couples in their 30s and 40s. So again, all this is telling us is how do we talk to these people? The vast majority of them are married. 69%, so we can speak to them as if they're focused on family. 51% of them have gone through college and 46% through grad school, so highly educated. That speaks a lot to the language that we can use with them. And again, I just looked through some of this. This is not the great. There's some architecture and stuff in here, personal care, management, stuff that's probably not the best. I would refine this audience a little bit more, but let's just go with this for now so that we can break down this idea. Page likes. So this is going to tell me this again is giving me some clues. It's telling me, all right, from here, what types of organizations? So Lean In, that's the Lean In community right here. We can take a look at it. What type of stuff do they share on this page? So Lean In, I know, is a book. And then also they have this community here that has millions of people in it. So again, the clues you're looking for here on this page is what is the type of content that is shared? What are they sharing on this page? So what are they talking about? This is a core story. This probably leads over to a blog. Let's see what the blog's about. So this is giving us clues, again, for how do I talk to this audience. So this looks like a case study about this person. The person who's passionate about healthy living and all that stuff. Again, the reason I'm telling you this is it's giving us more clues. So I know the Wall Street Journal's not great. So maybe what we'll put in here is Lean In. We'll put the book. We'll put NPR. See, a lot of them are interested in that. And then let me take out Wall Street Journal. So now this is interesting. All right, so nice. So this has refined it quite a bit. It's changed our demographics a little bit. So still 57 to 43. Our page likes change. But again, this is giving us clues over time on how do we build the audience. So this is giving us way more stuff for our teachers. Teachers pay teachers. Surviving a teacher's salary. Mindshift, TED Ed. That's awesome. We'll say S academics say, even though that looks hilarious, that I would want to view that. So all these things in here are telling us we are teachers. So we can add a lot of these, and this gives us content clues for what do we develop to these people. The other thing I like about this audience is this is a great target audience, this 450K to 500K, because we can make multiple impressions for not very much money. Now, again, we want to keep the cost as low as we can when we're running these things, but this is giving us all the clues to say, specifically, what are these people? Who do they like? And then let's look at where they are. So locations. So, oh man, all over the place. Massachusetts, Kansas, Iowa, Massachusetts again, Virginia, California. So again, we can get really specific with the targeting. We can look at their activity. So this is telling me 63 is definitely way, way, way above the average of active on Facebook. So what it's telling me is, again, this is a good audience for Facebook. We know they're on here. In general, the average person is only looking at about 19 activities. This person's looking at 63. They like posts a lot. They click ads a lot. So a great ad audience that we've got here. Again, for the most part, they're on desktop and mobile, but probably mostly mobile. So you want to keep that in mind when we're targeting these people. I bet a lot of them, when they're looking at the computer, are doing it at school, which is very interesting. So you have to make sure when you design your pages or the way that you're focused on it, that your pages are keeping in mind that you don't necessarily want to have videos that are auto-playing or stuff that's going to get them in trouble at work. Household info. Again, just look at all this information you can get that helps you refine this page on the Simple Campaign Organizer. And I'm going to switch back to me. Again, that's just a little demo of Facebook Insights, but the more specific that we can get, the better off that we can refine this. And then that takes us back to the numbers that we've got over here, which are telling us everything we need to know. And then purchases. So this is telling us what types of things do they normally purchase. Clothing, health and beauty. Again, this gives us an idea of what their priorities are and how, again, to speak to them more specifically in what we're doing here. So it's giving us clues. A rule that you want to keep in mind, again, this is a great rule from my friends over at Digital Marketer. Again, I'm Digital Marketer certified. Ryan Dice, I love his work. I love his team. I love what they do there. I'm a big supporter of this. This is a tip pretty much taken directly from them. But they mentioned that really you want to target an audience that's between about 500,000 and 1 million people. So when we look at this number here, where we were at 450K to 500K, it's at the lower end of that. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. And in my experience running Facebook ads, that isn't necessarily a bad thing because I can get into that audience and make multiple impressions without having to spend a ton. So I can develop these audiences over time. And really my goal from that is to say, I don't want an audience that's so big that I'm just kind of shooting ads out into the ether and people are only going to maybe see them once and it's going to go to all sorts of different people. Yes, that's getting you wider exposure, but it's better over time to really find these narrow audiences where you can make an impression. So if I'm running an ad campaign consistently for a couple of weeks to this audience, chances are everybody in this audience or a large percentage of this audience are going to see my ads multiple times. And then when you factor things like retargeting into that, makes it even more powerful. But again, for those of you who haven't used a tool like Facebook Insights, it is a great tool, and it's why I care about this who is your customer information. It allows us, And that's just one example. There are many other tools that do these types of things that really will help you understand how to target and find your audience. But the more specific that you get, the better off you're going to be over time, and the better the evaluation is. And I know that's a very specific way to look at this, but it gets you very clear about your customer, what they are, what they do, how that works. That's mission critical. So now let's talk about 3, and I'm going to go through some of this a little bit faster. So here, section 3, these checkboxes, I'm asking you, how do you advertise? So I mentioned this on Marsha's yesterday. For those of you who missed the session where I was talking about Marsha yesterday, we talked about really the purpose of these checkboxes is not just to check all the boxes. It's really to check the ones that you're really going to put the effort and energy into doing in what we've got here. And so you've got a lot of in-person efforts, which again, for people who are starting, who don't have a huge budget, who aren't sure how these things work, makes total sense to be able to say, all right, I know that I'm going to have to leverage more in-person or free online stuff than paid online stuff. But again, keep in mind your time is the most valuable form of marketing. When you're building a business, your time is what needs to become your most valuable resource and asset. So if you're spending it in a way that isn't necessarily the best for getting you where you want to go, you've got big issues. So if all of your time is leveraged in going out and getting leads, now you've got the challenge of you've only got the time you've got and the team you've got. So a lot of times you have to get to a point eventually where you have some sort of budget for advertising. You do have Facebook ads checked on here. Just in terms of what you have checked, you have networking events, community functions, referrals, all those. So again, get those things set up. I think all those make total sense. You have a direct mail piece. You really want to make sure the follow-up on that is critical. You want to have retargeting set up on that thing, so anybody that comes to your website off that direct mail piece is getting ads again from you. Really critical. Emailing your existing list. We didn't talk about list size yet. Social media posts, all that stuff, so you want to get your social set up. All that's great. And then Facebook ads, I just gave you a big clue on how you can start looking that up, get specific about your audience, and get in front of them. What materials do you need when you meet your customer? Business cards. I'm not a huge fan of business cards. I'd rather have a flyer or an order form that I give them. Business cards, people can easily throw away. In fact, I've got business cards sitting on my desk right here. And I mean, I'm good at following up with them, but even then, you know, it's much more likely someone's going to walk around with your flyer. Even better, you were at an event where we're talking about books. Book is another great thing you can use in there, but business cards are nice. But for the most part, you want to take their business card and be responsible for the follow-up. Materials for any exercises. Yep, take those. I want to do with them. My products. Yeah, products are a great thing, especially if you have physical stuff. Want to be able to sell that to them. What's your free offer? Free reports and free audiobook with every purchase of a seminar/workshop. Great. Free report, again, you want to refine it based off of what we just talked about. Make sure that that report or those reports are speaking to both of your audiences. I've just looked at teachers, really, but teachers and parents, you want to be really specific about that. Make sure the offer is appropriate to who you're talking to. What's my paid offer? Workshop, seminar discount, okay. Second book with a package, great. That sounds like another good upsell. We don't have prices on these, and I wrote that number down. So it's tough for me to say, since we have to make $1,000 off of 100 customers, if that's what we're doing. We have to make sure that these numbers work. So we have to make sure that with all this combined, we're getting into that $1,000 range. Now, you may already have that. I don't want to assume you don't, but let's be really specific about that. What problem does your customer have that the offer solves? Positive culture in the classroom, positive rebuilding of family relationships. Again, we already talked about that. Be a little more specific. How will you follow up with leads that do not take the offer? Emails. Next to that, I wrote a question. I wrote teachers ? You mentioned that teachers are busy. Are emails the best way to get them? And you also want to be very clear about the best times to get them in front of the teachers that they'll actually look at them. I would be looking at other ways. You know, you might want to incorporate text messaging in there. You might want to incorporate calling at appropriate times because, again, teachers are busy, and I know a lot of them are going to be behind in their emails. Doesn't mean that your emails can't be effective. They certainly can, but you want to keep that in mind, and again, keep a mixed media approach in mind for your audience. Handwritten notes, love that one. Phone calls, you got that in here. I just wrote that question next to emails. Are emails really the best way? Now, yes, I think you should always have emails in the process. You just have to ask yourself at what point are they going to be really engaged in your emails, and make sure that your emails are strong enough to get you to where you want to go. How will you follow up with customers that do take the offer? You said same as above, so emails, handwritten notes, phone calls, plus future offers. Great, love that. What besides revenue? So now we're on to section 4, the last page. How do you measure your success? This is a really key one. It's part of a program that I'm about to launch here in the next week called the 5 Key Business Success Factors. And measurement is really telling you, is it working? Because a lot of people just stand around and look at their bank account and say, well, there's no money in here. What measurements are determining whether the money's going to show up in there? Now, I'm not saying that money isn't the most important stat. It definitely is. But at the same time, you want to have indicators. You want to be looking at things saying, all right, what stats are going to go up that's going to indicate I'm going to find those leads? I'm going to get more customers. What are the critical stats that I need to be looking at? So in here, you said customer feedback and reviews. I drew an arrow next to that says more. I don't think that's enough. That's telling you whether the campaign is a success. Are we looking for social followers? Are we looking for email list growth? Are we looking for paid list growth? We need some specific measurable things in there that say we are at 5 followers now and we want to go to 105 followers by a certain date. So you want your stat to be really specific like that. What revenue will tell me that this campaign is a success? We set $100K on the front page. Back-end revenue for products, all that stuff. So you want to be looking for $1,000 a customer, really, in this model. So you need to make sure that your products and services align with that amount, or they're more than that amount, or the mixture of those things are that amount. So let's just assume you have a book, and that book is $10. And that's all most of your customers buy. So if we want to get to $100,000 at a $10 book, that means we need to sell 10,000 books. So again, I just want you to have that perspective of how many leads versus sales do you actually need to find. That's a really critical thing here. How much will it cost to complete this campaign? You said about $100 to $500. Is that just for the direct mail? I doubt your ad budget's going to be that low. I would love to start that low, but again, if we're looking for 100 buyers, not just 100 leads, that might be a bit on the low side. So again, that is taking us back to the goal and saying at this point, and I wrote in big letters here, ROI, return on investment. So what that's telling me is I want to be able to say how much I need to spend to be able to make that amount. So if I need to make 100K in profit in my business, that probably means I need to bring in more than 100K in revenue. And that means that my marketing expense needs to be factored into that. So I'm not saying you need to start at that point, and you can start as low as, $5 to $10 a day or $25 a week to start, but that isn't necessarily going to be the fastest way. So you want to be looking at all of these factors and saying ROI is a factor here. Can you afford to invest more in the beginning because you're confident that your follow-up process and what you're doing there is going to get you where you need to go at the end? That's a really critical thing to be thinking about. So again, Simple Campaign Organizer, this tool that we're going through in these types of sessions that I'm doing here on Facebook Live, I'm going to be launching this to you who are watching this live, to the public, in the next week or so, maybe slightly longer, but I think we're on track to really get it done in the next week. And then you'll be able to go through these same sessions. So if you fill out the organizer and send that back, I'm going to continue doing these on Facebook Live. I love real world stuff, so I want to work with your real business. I want you to give me your comments. Let me know what you need. Let me know your questions. If you looked at that insight tool and it blew your brain out of your mind, for those of you who've never seen it, let's do another session on that. I prefer real world stuff. I don't want to make these things up for you. This is the stuff that I do in my business every day with my clients every day to make them successful and get them where they need to go. So again, in the next week, I will do a big announcement when this comes live for all of you to do and the rest of those types of things. But again, thank you so much to Shelley Campbell-Harley for filling this out. I've tagged her in this post. I hope you get a ton of value out of this. It helps you understand your customer a bit better, your marketing plan a bit better. And for all of you who are watching that going, man, I need some of this too, you'll be able to get that organizer in the next week. Spend some time playing with insights, understanding your customer a little better. It can make a huge difference in your business, huge difference in your success overall. So I want you to be thinking about that. And again, for all of you, have a great day. We'll be back very soon. Have a great weekend for those of you who are watching this right before the weekend. And we will see you soon on Find Your Momentum. Dangerous Minds. Listen to Coolio.